Design Project Presentation. Room Project by Maria Fernanda Salas. Strand A, A1. My problem was that my room is still painted from when I was a small child. My solution was to convince my parents to let me paint it, and my target audience for this project were my parents. A2. Some of the research I did previously were what is the cheapest paint, how much does a paint contractor cost, and how much paint would be necessary. A3. For this strand, I compared other rooms to get ideas about my own. Here are some examples. A4. In this strand, I wrote a design brief that in summary said that I needed to show my parents a 3D model of the room and convince them to let me change the color, and after getting the permission, I would buy the paint and hire a painter to paint my room. Strand B, B1. For B1, I had to create a list of things that would make my project successful. Some examples were it needed to be a color scheme I liked, appropriate equipment to paint the room, and my parents needed to approve the final design. B2. In B2, I had to sketch out some ideas for my room design in color and talk about each one. My ideas were the following. B3. For B3, I had to explain which of the designs I chose and my reasoning behind it. I chose design 2, and my reasoning was that I liked that design the most because it contained one of my favorite colors and also the design I felt described me as a person. B4. In B4, I added a list of things that I needed and also a final sketch of the chosen design. My list of needs included painter's tape, a ladder, 4 liters of paint, and paintbrushes, and my final room design looked like this. Strand C, C1. For C1, I made a detailed step-by-step operation outlining everything I had to do for the 3D model, and some of the most important steps were find cardboard, outline with pencil, cut through the cardboard, paint and stick together. C2 and 3. For these two strands, I had to actually make the 3D model and turned out like this. C4. In this strand, I talked about challenges and changes in the creation of the 3D model. Some things I discussed were to shorten the sheet music on one of the walls, and I couldn't get straight lines because using tape would have ripped the cardboard. Strand D, D1. In here I had to choose 3 or more testing methods to see how well my project did. My 4 testing methods were comparing existing products to my final design, doing a survey and seeing what people thought of my room, asking an expert about my project, and lastly, having a conference with my parents asking them what were their thoughts. D2. For this specific strand, I had to see if my design specifications had been met or not. What I talked about was, for example, that I had convinced my parents, but I hadn't yet achieved the appropriate equipment specification. D3. In strand D3, I talked about some of my strengths, like convincing my parents and a color scheme that I liked. But I also talked about some of my weaknesses, like the room being too dark or too monochromatic, and how I could improve these aspects. D4. And for this last strand, I explained how this project has impacted the client and the target audience. In conclusion, the impact on me was that I could redo my room, and the impact on my parents was that they could see I was responsible and I showed them my commitment to making this project come true.